The purpose of Safety Links is to provide the public with general safety-related information covering the home, businesses, and community with emphasis upon senior citizen-related issues, drawing upon existing programs currently being offered by federal, state, and local agencies. A broad-based, multifaceted array of subjects will be covered. In addition, contact information will be offered to those seeking direct help or support. And now, on with today's topic.
Hello, my name is Tom Hayes. I'm Director of Customer and Community Relations for New Jersey Natural Gas Company, and I'm actually here as the President of the Board of Directors of SCAN, and we're actually going to be doing a special Safety Links presentation on disaster relief. And I'm fortunate to have with me Tim Hearne, who's the President and CEO of the United Way of Monmouth County, and I welcome you to the program.
Tom, thanks for having me.
That's great, and we're going to be talking about things related to the Sandy relief and all the efforts and things that you're involved with, especially related to the long-term recovery group for Monmouth County.
Great.
So,
looking forward to it.
Yep, and I do want to say before we even get started that you've really been doing a wonderful job with that. I have my fingers in that a little bit, and it's really been great working with you, and you and your team has been doing a spectacular job.
We're trying to do our bit.
Yes. So as we get into this, maybe really the first question I have for you is, how many people in Monmouth County were really affected by Sandy and have applied for like FEMA assistance?
Well, Hurricane Sandy has been described as the second largest natural disaster in the country, only being behind Katrina. And Katrina was 7 years ago. You know, they're still recovering from Katrina down along the Gulf Coast.
Right.
In Monmouth County alone, there was FEMA's had 32,500 approximate applications for assistance into the FEMA program. Of that number, approximately 1/3 are renters, 2/3 are owner-occupied houses. And interesting, people think of it as the Jersey Shore, but 90% of those applicants are people's primary residence. So it had a significant impact amongst the county. There's 630,000 residents in Monmouth County, so it was a huge percentage of the people in Monmouth County.
And what towns in Monmouth County would you say were hit the hardest?
You know, FEMA, I just calculates a number called verified loss, where they go out and do inspections of those houses, those 32,000 applications. And they've estimated that the FEMA verified loss in Monmouth County is $165 million.
Wow. And
I'm sure it's going to be more than that. And,
sure.
and they say that because those are estimates. There are 9 towns in Monmouth County, 9 out of the 54 municipalities in Monmouth County, that total about 125 million of that 165 million. The largest individual town is Union Beach, with about $23 million of verified loss.
Wow.
And if you consider 4 towns along the Bay Shore there, Highlands and Port Monmouth, Keensburg, and Union Beach, that represents about $60–70 million verified losses alone in there. And then you go to Manasquan, down in southern Monmouth is the second largest town impacted, with about $15 million of verified losses. Then you have the towns along the Long Branch, Oceanport, and Monmouth Beach area, significant losses. And then the 10th largest is Seabright with about $8 million of verified losses. So those 8–9 towns make up the majority of the impact in Monmouth County.
Right, okay. It's a lot. And I know there's certainly a number of senior residences that were affected. I believe it's somewhere...
About 6,000 seniors have been impacted.
Okay.
You know, the storm impacted a lot of those communities we've talked about, is where a lot of the working class people of Monmouth County live, and have always kind of strained to get by, and they were significantly impacted. So it's very critical that we get those people back in their homes as soon as possible, for them personally, and then also for the development of the community, and for their families and for the businesses in those areas.
Right, and I know our neighboring Ocean County also had quite a hit of
Ocean
seniors.
County, Monmouth and Ocean County in total equal about 80% of the total loss statewide. Where we talked about Monmouth County being $165 million of losses. Ocean Counties in the $225, $250 million range. They have about 60% of the applications statewide. We have roughly 20%.
Right.
So, you know, the two counties make up the majority of the impact of Hurricane Sandy.
Right. Wow. Now, I know you've been involved personally, really, since really the beginning,
Right.
with the long-term recovery group.
Correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
a couple things. First, as United Way, we do not get involved in immediate relief. FEMA comes in, Red Cross comes in, a lot of faith-based comes in. And our role is really try to start what they call these long-term recovery committees. And long-term recovery committees exist because there's the realization that the recovery from these tragic events could take 3 to 5 or even 5 to 7 years. And FEMA is going to be long gone by then. I mean, they'll be around, but not to the extent they are today. Right. And so they, as part of their duties, establish long-term recovery committees in each county impacted by a natural disaster like this. So it is something that is formed in every community after a natural disaster. Fortunately or unfortunately, in Monmouth County, we've never had a natural disaster in many, many years, so we have not had one, so we are learning how to set one up.
Right.
But we have formed a long-term recovery committee in Monmouth County. So these exist nationwide, and they form out of an organization called VOADS, Voluntary Agencies Active in Disaster. There's a national VOAD consisting of United Ways, Red Cross, the faith-based community, and there's a guidebook on how to set up a long-term recovery committee. And it is really just an attempt, as best we can, to coordinate the efforts so that the people with the greatest needs get the resources they need as soon as possible.
Right. Now, tell me a little bit about the committee structure.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So the National VOAD recommends a pretty broad committee structure to run the long-term recovery committees. And what you first thing realize, it's not all just about dollars. There is a huge amount, as we've seen already in Monmouth County and Ocean County, of volunteer organizations that come from throughout the country. It's amazing, the faith-based organizations from throughout the country. Some of them are paying back for when we help them in their natural disasters.
Right.
But you have the Presbyterian, the Lutherans, the Mennonites, Catholic Charities, and I'm sure I'm missing many, many organizations, and World Renew and all them. In Monmouth County, we have 60 agencies currently participating in our long-term recovery committee.
It's incredible.
It really is. So, so we have these one committee is the volunteer committee to coordinate your houses. You need your house rebuilt, your first floor rebuilt. How are you going to do that? Well, you don't have to pay a contractor. You don't have the resources to pay a contractor. But we will have the volunteer committee will coordinate and have a faith-based organization, a church from down south, wherever, west, north. They'll come in for a week and help you rebuild that.
It's kind of like a barn raising on steroids.
On steroids, absolutely. Then we have a donations committee. A lot of the materials that are going to be used in the rebuild will be donated by national organizations, stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, Sears, Kmart. I mean, they're all been donating. We were looking for furniture donations, appliances donations, you know, plywood, wallboard, all that stuff. So there's a committee that is hooked up with the statewide warehouse and the national system to track and coordinate the donation stuff. So we have a volunteer donations committee. One of the key committees is case management. There is a skill set of disaster case management, and there are people who are trained in helping people recover from the impacts of this Hurricane Sandy. And these are disaster case managements, and they exist in a lot of the organizations in the community who will see a person and help them walk through the various stages of aid. Right. And again, I hope we've heard this already, is whatever you do, is first thing you do is have your FEMA application, then get your SBA application in. You need those two things. and just remind the audience to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we have a committee on construction. You have experts to rebuild the houses.
Right.
And you just can't go and rebuild a house. Especially you have to know how to do it right.
Right.
And professionally, with the right permits and with the base elevation changes.
Right.
Making sure that the houses that are rebuilt are built to the correct base elevations. That is critical because the impact on your flood insurance bill depends that you're building it to the right base elevations.
Right.
You can go, if you build to the correct base elevations, whatever that is in your town or street, you could be looking at a flood insurance bill of a couple $1,000s. Or if you're not building it right, it could be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 if you've not built to the correct base elevation.
And I think I've heard if you actually even go a little bit above, you might even save a little bit more.
Correct.
I mean, obviously, the safer, the better, and in the world of insurance, the less risk, the better as well.
Correct. So our construction coordinating team is helping coordinate the volunteers and the materials to rebuild houses with the professionals like the Habitats of Humanities and some of the other faith-based organizations. That's their skill set, is doing that. We have obviously a communications committee to get the word out, and also down the road to advocate for the people's needs in the community, the state and federal level. One of the committees that is very active right now is our Emotional and Spiritual Care Committee.
Sure.
There is a grant from FEMA that is being managed by the Mental Health Association of Monmouth County. Health and Healing, where we have, they have, I think 70 volunteers working on individual emotional care for individuals who are been impacted by the storm, because it is a huge personal strain on anybody, as you can imagine, losing a house and being out of the house and when going in.
Very stressful.
And then the what other committee is called unmet needs, because ultimately what the long-term recovery committee is trying to do is meet the unmet needs that after FEMA, after your insurances, after your personal resources are exhausted, and you still have to buy appliances, you still have to, the balance of your first floor has to be done, or your house has to be raised. You actually out of resources. So it's after all those things, our net McKeep, working with case management, coordinates the that case and works with those individuals to get them the resources they need, and hopefully to rebuild their lives back to where they were before the impacts of the hurricane.
Now, if folks wanted to contact you, I guess, at the United Way.
Contact us. Later on in March, we will be a little more public with how to contact the Long-Term Recovery Committee, but you'll be able to contact a lot of the nonprofit community, Catholic Charities, the Red Cross, several other major organizations. We are spreading that out. The need is so great, and a lot of organizations in the county will be able to process your claim, your case, and work it through, and put it through the system. As I said, we have 60+ agencies in the county involved, just trying to coordinate as best we can to help people recover.
Great. Well, thank you for that. We're just going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll get back to more conversations about the long-term recovery committees and plans.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
What if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if everything familiar becomes anything but? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit. Make a plan. Be informed today. Learn how at ready.gov.
Welcome back. Again, I'm Tom Hayes, Director of Customer and Community Relations for New Jersey Natural Gas, and also current board president for SCAN. And I have with me a wonderful guest, Tim Hearne, who is the president and CEO of the United Way of Monmouth County.
Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. Tim, we were talking before the break a little bit about the long-term recovery efforts and all that sort of thing. And again, with you being actually the president and CEO of the United Way of Monmouth County, can you tell me a little bit about some of the things you've been doing as United Way as well towards these efforts with Sandy?
Right. Well, United Way one thing we did is help facilitate the formation of a long-term recovery group. We worked with New Jersey Natural Gas to provide space heaters in some towns that were impacted, individuals impacted that they have heat while some of the rest of the utilities are being restored. We've been working with the nonprofit community throughout Monmouth County to help them get, if they've been impacted by the storm, get back into shape as soon as possible and to make up some of the losses that they've had as a result of the hurricane, and also providing some funding for mitigation so that down the road, next time this happens, them and their clients are better prepared. We've worked with Catholic Charities, provided them some seed money to provide security deposits for people moving back who have to go from one rental to a new rental and haven't been able to get the security deposits back, but need that for a new rental. So we provided some money for security deposits. Of course, the biggest issue, though, is housing.
Right.
Housing was an issue. Affordable housing was an issue in Monmouth County before the storm. And it continues to be. It just got made worse by the impacts of Hurricane Sandy. So that's an issue that a lot of the nonprofit community will be working on over the next years to help rebuild and maybe hopefully build new affordable housing units in the county.
Right. And we are certainly blessed to have wonderful nonprofit agencies and the county agency, as well as the state officials, really helping us out. And as you mentioned before, the folks that are coming from all over the country to help out has really been an incredible amount
Unbelievable.
of work and things that are being done that we could never afford to do on our own. We don't have the people power even to do all that.
The expertise that they bring to dealing with these disasters in the past. There's families that they live in their motorhomes, and this is what they do for a living, is they go around and help people with disasters. It's a very moving experience to meet these people and see all the work that they're trying to do. It says a lot about our country.
It does, right? And the human nature that's out there, the things we sometimes feel is dissipating. When you have a disaster like this, people come out of the woodwork and you really see the fellow man kind of good bonding and all that help coming out.
And our attempt is just to try to, as best we can, coordinate that to have the best impact as we can.
Yep, it's really been amazing. And some of these folks we know are going to be in long-term temporary housing.
Yes.
I think the numbers are somewhere around like a little over 1,000, I think.
Well, as of currently, there's about, in the state, about 1,500 people in temporary housing, hotels. And they are, FEMA is working diligently. That number's been decreased, but it's diligently working to get those people to a more permanent housing in all throughout the state. In Monmouth County, we do have Fort Monmouth, and we do have some housing being rehabilitated there. They're expecting about 145 units be eligible there. As part of the Fort Monmouth redevelopment, they were going to rebuild a lot of the units there, and they've kind of moved forward on a longer-term basis to move some of that rebuild of some of the housing units up quicker. So a larger number of units will be available over the next year or so.
Right. Now, as the long-term recovery group gets rolling more and more, and the process gets further developed and all that, I know you're going to have a website that you're
we're developing a website which we be able to Google Monmouth County Long-Term Recovery Committee. I'm sure you'll be able to get to our website, which will have the contact information, the people to contact, the members. Where our meetings are open, so there's full transparency. This is a very open process. We have policies and procedures which are being developed on how we're going to run the committee and move on a go-forward basis.
Mm-hmm. The other issue that's going to be obviously an important one you touched on a little bit before is really the funding. But
Right.
question I have for you is, like, where is a lot of this funding coming from?
Right. Well, there's funding coming from a lot of different sources. But a lot of the funding, again, is not just in dollars. It's in goods and services. It's in the volunteers. So
Right.
we expect a lot of the value coming from the long-term recovery come from these corporate, faith-based, civil organizations that will provide the free labor to get the work done. And then we also provide on people's donations of houses, of furniture and appliances and corporate gifts of plywood and that stuff. And then we've reached out to many foundations and have been very receptive to the idea of having this coordinated approach and see that as a very good way for us to impact and for them to fund.
Right.
And United Way itself had developed a regional Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund. And the money that our county has, local United Way, has received from that, we're dedicating it to the long-term recovery because we're committed to it and believe that this is one of the ways to get to the people who really need the help in Monmouth County.
Right, that's critical, that's important. And in terms of the folks that are involved with the long-term recovery, do you have an idea of roughly how many are we talking about?
We've had our meetings so far is we've had over 100 people participate. Our initial meeting, one of the gentlemen who's been involved in long-term recovery committees statewide, he's talked about how the numbers will decline over time. And so far we've been actually adding people as the word gets out. And I talked about the coordination. There's various groups working in various towns who see the need to coordinate sharing resources and no duplication of services. So we've had, any of the committee structures have 10, 15 people in there, and we need more people on some of these things.
Right.
So, and they're coming from the faith-based community, the county government, the state government. FEMA experts are advising the committees. The nonprofit community throughout the Monmouth County are actively involved.
Right.
And in this effort to help rebuild Monmouth County.
Right. There's a lot of effort that goes into getting this process going, and I think there's an issue out there where folks are anxious to get funding and they want to start rebuilding their homes. And we've had guests on here that have, from FEMA that have said it could be a year to 18 months before these floodplain
Right. Well, the governor announced in the end of January that the advisory floodplain elevation maps. He's going to use that as the official guidance.
Right.
So now what has to happen is the towns have to approve those and adopt those. But you don't want to rebuild too quickly because you want to do it right.
Right.
We're working with a nonprofit in New York City who's participating in these efforts, who's worked along the Gulf Coast during their rebuild. And has talked about the thousands of houses that were rebuilt that people can't live in because they were not built high enough, and the flood insurance is too expensive.
So these houses are abandoned.
So the houses are empty. So those are mistakes you don't want to reoccur in Monmouth County.
Right.
We have limited resources. We want to do it right and make sure what we do will last a long, long time and will survive the next hurricane that hopefully we'll never see again.
Right. So I think that is very important and worth repeating that. The issue here is not that people don't care, not that people aren't trying to get things done.
We want to do it right.
We have to take our time and do it right.
We have to do it right.
Unfortunately, it does take time to get all these pieces in place.
Correct.
And it's not because people are taking their time or slow. It's just because it does take that time to get these decisions made.
It just takes enough time. I mean, we talk about unmet needs. Well, you got to go through the FEMA process, your insurance process. You go through the flood insurance, all these processes determine what your unmet needs are.
Right.
So I know people don't like to hear it, and I understand that 100%. But we got to do it right and make sure that the resources that we have go to the right people.
Right, for sure. And how do people apply? They're going to go through FEMA?
They go
right,
through, normally everybody who's been impacted, even renters, should all apply through FEMA. Then after that, if FEMA sends them a SBA application, they should apply for the SBA application. That is critical because there's another layer of FEMA assistance, other needs assistance, which you're eligible for only if you apply for SBA loans. Right. So that's it. So you do that process and you go through your insurance, and then after all that's done, you would reach out to a disaster case manager, and they will work your case, document it, and present it to the Unmet Needs Committee, who will then coordinate with the other committees to provide you with the help you need to rebuild your houses.
Right. Okay. One other thing I know through the United Way, you administer or I guess run the 211
yes.
Line. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I know that's a great service.
Right. 211 is a nationwide information referral service, and all you have to do is call 211. It's open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And you can also go to nj201.org and go on the website. And that exists for people who have an issue that's new to them, or they don't know who to turn to. And they have people on the other end of the phone, live person on the phone, who's trained to take the call and make referrals to 2 to 3 agencies to help you resolve your problems. So 211 exists before and after the hurricane. It's statewide in New Jersey. It takes, on an annual basis, I think the phone volume was 125, 140,000 calls a year. In the 6 to 8 weeks after the hurricane, it took 75,000 calls.
Wow.
Relating to Hurricane Sandy relief and preparation before and after. So a very key component in the information dissemination, information flow for hurricanes. And if you're impacted by the hurricane, you can call 211 and they'll be able to make you referrals to the agencies that will provide assistance.
Right, which is great. I mean, that's, again, I have to tell you, before Hurricane Sandy, I'd actually used 211 just to find out if there was an all-night pharmacy, because one of my children were sick and we needed to get medicine right away. And sure enough, they had the answer, and you know, it was great.
People don't know who to call sometimes.
Right.
And they're come to a family situation that's new to them. Child is alcohol, drugs, mental issues, rental, mortgage, and all of a sudden you had a financial, emotional issue that you were not prepared for, and what you do is you call 211.
Right, right. Well, I want to say thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, and you did a great job, and I really admire the good work that you're doing personally, as well as the organization and all the folks at Long-Term Recovery. I'm sure our whole community is really indebted to this organization. I hope everybody out there has patience and knows it's going to take a while, but really, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, New Jersey Natural Gas, for your work.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.